Detroit had been building fast cars since 1964 and competing against itself the whole time. But 1970 was the year the competition stopped being polite. Insurance companies were already threatening surcharges that would make the fastest cars unaffordable. Emissions regulations were circling on the horizon. Everyone inside the industry knew what was coming. And in response, both Chevrolet and Chrysler did the same thing. They stopped holding back. Chevrolet took the Corvette, already the definitive American performance car, and dropped a 454 cubic inch LS6 engine under the hood, 450 horsepower. Factory rated, the most powerful engine Chevrolet had ever put in a production automobile. It was not a detuned racing engine. It was not a marketing number. It was exactly what it claimed to be. Chrysler took the Barracuda, already fast enough to embarrass most of its competition, and fitted the 426 Hemi, not the street-friendly version of the Hemi, not a detuned variant. The same engine block that had swept the top 5 positions at Daytona in 1964, the same architecture that had made Ford spend 2 years redesigning their entire NASCAR program, now installed in a car that weighed less than 3,500 pounds. Same year, same country, same drag strip, 2 completely different answers to what a fast car should be, and only one of them could win. The Corvette's history with performance engines goes back to the solid axle years, but by 1970, the car had matured into a genuine sports car with the chassis to match its engine options. The 1970 Stingray rode on an independent rear suspension design that Chevrolet had been refining since 1963. 4-wheel disc brakes were standard. The body-on-frame construction gave the Corvette a rigidity that contemporary pony cars could not match. The LT1 had been the performance Corvette for 1970, a 350 cubic inch small block that produced 370 horsepower and was, by any objective measure, an excellent engine. But Chevrolet added something different to the option sheet that year. RPO code LS6. 454 cubic inches, solid lifter camshaft with aggressive duration and lift specifications, rectangular port cylinder heads with larger valves, forged pistons, a Holley 4-barrel carburetor sitting on top of an aluminum intake manifold, a high-capacity oil pump, revised cooling system components designed for sustained high-output operation. Chevrolet rated the LS6 at 450 horsepower at 5,600 revolutions per minute and 500 pound-feet of torque at 3,600 revolutions per minute. Those figures were unusually honest for an era when most manufacturers were playing games with their published ratings to manage insurance classifications and regulatory attention. The LS6 horsepower numbers were tested and verified by independent publications. Car and Driver called them accurate. Road and Track called them conservative. Nobody called them inflated. The transmission options told the same story. The LS6 Corvette was available with a Muncie 4-speed in either wide ratio or close ratio specification, or the M22 Rock Crusher, the heavy-duty gearbox built for racing applications. The Rock Crusher produced a distinctive whine under load that no serious performance buyer mistook for road noise. It was a racing gearbox. Chevrolet sold it as standard equipment. Quarter-mile performance was documented at 13.8 seconds at 108 miles per hour by Car and Driver. Road and Track recorded 13.9 at 107. Motor Trend's testing produced similar results. The consistency across publications confirmed what the engine's specifications suggested. This was a real number, delivered by a real car in street trim with street tires on a public drag strip. Only 4,473 LS6 Corvettes were built for 1970. The engine option added considerably to the base price, and the fuel economy penalty was significant. Chevrolet understood that it was selling the LS6 to a specific buyer, someone who wanted the maximum, regardless of what the maximum cost. Plymouth renamed the Barracuda to the Cuda for 1970, and the new E-body platform that underpinned it was a genuinely different car from the 1969 Barracuda. Wider tracks, a wider engine bay, and a body design that was shorter and more aggressively styled than its predecessor. Chrysler had built the E-body specifically to accommodate the largest engines in their lineup, including one engine that most of the industry considered in a category of its own. The 426 Hemi had entered production in 1966 as a street-legal version of the racing engine that had destroyed Ford's plans at the 1964 Daytona 500. Chrysler's engineers had designed the hemispherical combustion chamber geometry to maximize airflow and combustion efficiency in a way that conventional wedgehead designs could not match. The geometry that gave the engine its name was not a styling decision or a marketing angle. It was an engineering solution to the problem of extracting maximum power from a given displacement. The 426 Street Hemi displaced exactly 426 cubic inches. Factory horsepower was rated at 425 at 5,000 revolutions per minute. That number was, by universal acknowledgement in the automotive press of the period, significantly understated. Chrysler's engineers used a different camshaft profile and cast iron intake manifold for the street version compared to the full race unit, but the hemispherical heads remained. Independent dyno testing consistently produced figures in the 470 to 500 horsepower range. Chrysler did not dispute the gap between the official rating and the actual output. The conservative number was an insurance management decision. In the Cuda, the Hemi was paired with either a 4-speed manual, the A833, the same transmission Chrysler used in their race program, or the TorqueFlite automatic. The Dana 60 rear axle with 4.10 or 3.54 gear ratios was the preferred drag strip setup. With the 4-speed drag tires and the Dana 60, experienced drivers documented quarter-mile times under 13 seconds. In standard street trim, the documented range was 13.5 to 13.7 seconds at 104 to 107 miles per hour. Chrysler built 652 Hemi Cudas in 1970. 652 in a country of 200 million people. The Hemi option added more than $1,200 to the base price of the Cuda, and the insurance surcharges on a new Hemi Cuda could exceed the engine option cost itself for a young male buyer. Chrysler knew the market was finite. They built the cars anyway. The LS6 Corvette and the Hemi Cuda were not competing for the same customer. They were making different arguments about what performance meant, and both arguments were coherent. The Corvette's argument was completeness. The LS6 engine sat in a chassis with independent suspension at both ends, 4-wheel disc brakes, and precise rack and pinion steering calibrated for the kind of road that has corners in it. The car that ran 13.8 seconds at the quarter mile could also be driven on a road course at sustained high speed without becoming dangerous. It was fast in a straight line. And it was fast in the other directions too. Chevrolet had built a car that could do all of it. The Hemi Cuda's argument was focus. Chrysler had not built the Cuda to be competitive on a road course. The suspension geometry was tuned for drag strip launches. The power band of the Hemi engine delivered its output in a way that rewarded a driver who understood the narrow window of peak torque and knew how to use the launch technique the car demanded. Away from the drag strip, the Cuda was a physically demanding car. On the drag strip, with a driver who knew what they were doing, it was extremely difficult to beat. The 426 Hemi produced its peak torque lower in the rev range than the LS6, and the hemispherical combustion chamber geometry gave it a top-end power delivery that conventional wedge engines struggled to match. The LS6's advantages were in sustained output over a broader RPM range and in the total performance package the Corvette chassis provided. At the quarter mile in standard trim, The two engines produced results within a tenth of a second of each other across multiple independent tests: quarter mile, standard trim, street tires, factory setup. Car and Driver tested the LS6 Corvette and recorded 13.8 seconds at 108 miles per hour, a result they described as genuine and consistent with multiple passes. Hot Rod Magazine tested the Hemi Cuda and recorded 13.7 at 104. Superstock Magazine produced similar times for both cars in separate tests conducted that same year. The terminal speed difference is the technical story. The LS6 Corvette was going 108 miles per hour through the lights. The Hemi Cuda was going 104. The Corvette was faster at the end of the quarter mile, but the Cuda got there first. The Hemi's torque advantage came off the line, where it launched harder and carried that advantage through the first half of the run. The LS6 made its power higher in the rev range and was still pulling harder than the Hemi when the run ended, but not quite fast enough to overcome the Cuda's early lead. In a single pass on any given day, either car could win. The margin is that close. A better launch in the Corvette closes it. A slightly higher track temperature favors the Hemi. The difference between 13.7 and 13.8 is within the error range of human reaction time at the line. On a road course, the argument ends quickly. The Corvette's chassis, braking, and steering gave it capabilities the Cuda was never designed to use. The Hemi Cuda was not set up for corners. The LS6 Corvette was. That was not a failure of the Cuda. It was the intended design. Chrysler built a drag strip weapon, and on a drag strip, it delivered exactly what it promised. Strip, Cuda, by the thinnest of margins. Everything else, Corvette, by a wider one. Choose your track. 1970 was the peak of what both cars could be. Neither lasted beyond 1971 in original specification. The 426 Hemi was discontinued after the 1971 model year. The combination of insurance surcharges and new federal emission standards made it economically and technically impossible to continue. Chrysler had been managing the Hemi's insurance classification problem since 1966, and by 1971, the surcharges had become large enough to deter the majority of potential buyers. New low-lead fuel requirements were incompatible with the compression ratio the Hemi required for its rated output. Chrysler lowered the compression for 1971, the last year, and pulled the engine at the end of that model year. The 652 Hemi Cudas built in 1970 became collectible the moment the option disappeared from the order sheet. The LS6 was detuned for 1971 to meet the same emissions requirements. Chevrolet dropped the compression ratio from 11.25 to 1 to 9.0 to 1, reducing the rated output to 425 horsepower. Still a significant engine, but not the 1970 version. The LS6 was removed from the Corvette options list after 1971. The collector market has spent 50 years deciding which car won. A numbers-matching 1970 Hemi Cuda with documented provenance, confirmed engine, confirmed options, confirmed history, sells at major American auction for between $800,000 and $1.2 million. Well-documented examples with desirable colors have exceeded $1.5 million. The rarity is the engine. 652 cars in 1 year, then never again. A 1970 LS6 Corvette with matching numbers commands $120,000 to $180,000 depending on specification, documentation, and condition. Significant collector money, but a fraction of the Hemi's premium. The LS6 was a better car by most objective measures. The market does not always price on objective measures. The market is pricing on rarity and on mythology. 652 cars, with an engine that was already a legend, in a body that was new and aggressive and gone before most people had seen one in person. That is what the Hemi Cuda Premium is about. But the LS6 Corvette was the better drag car at the top end, and a better everything else on every other road. Both answers were right. Both cars were built for exactly 1 year at maximum specification. Both disappeared before the industry fully understood what it had made. That is what 1970 was, and it never came back.